Welcome, cinephiles, to another episode of Frame by Frame, a series dedicated to the craft of filmmaking. Now, take a stab at this question. How would you, just you, define slasher films? Well, I bet you'd label them as part of a horror subgenre, one where a violent psychopath stalks and kills a group of people, typically teenage girls. Now, I admit that's a pretty bloodless description, so maybe some visual examples will help. Now don't worry, none of those actors were talented enough to have a career anyway. But once America shared my love for bad acting and butchery. Just look at the time period between 1978 and 1984, known as the Golden Age of slasher films, an apt title considering over 100 slasher films were made during this time. Now, the movement was kicked off by the success of John Carpenter's 1978 film Halloween. Soon, theaters were so flooded with knockoffs that audiences were tripping over cliches. Final girl, don't have sex, don't answer the phone. You know all those tropes Jamie Kennedy said in Scream while you were thinking, please God, if he dies in this movie, make his death the most painful. But here's the twist. Halloween shouldn't take credit for the slasher craze, and neither should Jason or Freddy. You see, another film was responsible for the genesis of the slasher. One you've likely never heard of, but one that was so inventive, so controversial, that it inspired an entirely new genre of American horror. And that film just so happens to be Bob Clark's 1974 chiller, Black Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho.
Not to be confused with Clark's other Yuletide hit, A Christmas Story.
Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
But here's the pitch for Black Christmas. During the holiday break, a sorority house is menaced by a sinister lunatic. One who likes to taunt his victims with phone calls like these.
You want my fat
Oh, why don't you go find a wall socket and stick your tongue in it? That'll give you a charge.
I'll stick my tongue up your pretty
You f***ing creep!
I'm going to kill you.
Must be nice to be a chick. I gotta call a 900 number for that kind of action. But the girls decide to ignore the call. That is, until one of them goes missing. And by missing, I mean murdered. Her dead body stashed in the attic of the sorority house, the same place where the killer's hiding out. By now, though, I'm sure you're thinking, okay, that's nothing groundbreaking. What's all the hype about? Well, let's talk innovations. Black Christmas was the first holiday-themed horror film. It also tackled taboo subjects of the time. Take the main character Jess, played by Olivia Hussey. She decides to have an abortion against her boyfriend's wishes. Her reason?
You told me about you wanting to be a concert pianist. How it was your greatest dream. And I told you about some of the things that I wanted to do. I still want to do those things.
That's pretty controversial stuff for 1974, as was the rather crass way sexuality was discussed by female characters like Barb, played here by Margot Kidder. Take, for example, her progressive thoughts on consensual sex.
You can't rape a townie. You really are too much, Barb. Oh, come on, this is a sorority house, not a convent.
But let's shift our focus to Black Christmas's resident psycho, Billy. We never learn this maniac's motive, and he's never caught. That's right, a killer who remains a complete unknown. Kinda. You see, what's really interesting is that you can piece together his backstory. You just need to listen to his calls.
What your mother and I must know is...
So let's break that down. The guy's clearly referring to himself in the third person when he says Billy. Second, he's talking to someone named Agnes, probably a relative of similar age, a sister maybe, and it becomes clear that she and Billy conspired to get rid of a baby. Billy also poses as first on-screen victim with a baby doll. So, did Billy and Agnes kill their younger sibling? And did Billy murder his parents once they found out? Well, all the facts point to yes. Yet what's fascinating is that director Bob Clark forces us to reach that conclusion entirely on our own. But back to Billy. His modus operandi is pretty simple. He calls his victims before he kills them. A shtick countless other slashers adopted over the years. And that's all just subject matter and content. As far as form goes, Clark's spine tingler was equally inventive. Just look at all these shots and tell me what they have in common. The killer's a little camera shy, huh? Well, guess what? You never see any more of the guy than that. And Clark makes that feasible by relying on numerous POV shots like these. But none of the characters know Billy's even in the house until the film's climax. And victim number 1? Throughout the entire film, only we and Billy know she's dead. Yep, the authorities just assume she's gone missing. So the entire movie is an exercise in dramatic irony. Now you'd think that's all there is to know about Black Christmas, but to truly appreciate the film, you need to understand just how influential it was. And you can see that impact on even the most genre-defining slasher films. Take Halloween. Remember that opening Panaglide shot? Well, it was directly inspired by Black Christmas's opening sequence. Just look at the two side by side. Now think of Halloween's premise. A faceless killer stalks a group of schoolgirls. His motive is unclear, and he's never caught. And when does all this mayhem occur? Oh, on a well-known holiday. Sounds kinda familiar, doesn't it, Jason? Of course it does. Just think of the title Friday the 13th. It's designed using the same holiday horror gimmick Black Christmas started, and like that film, Friday the 13th leans on taboo subjects. Actually, let's be honest, it totally exploits them. Just look at the sheer amount of gratuitous sex throughout the series. They might as well release an anniversary edition entitled Naughty America Presents Day the 69th. But this reliance on controversy stems from Christmas's own line crossing. Friday the 13th just shamelessly cashes in on it. Now, have you ever heard of the 1979 film When a Stranger Calls? Yeah, you know, the one about a babysitter who's receiving threatening phone calls from a psychopath?
Hello?
One who just so happens to be calling from where exactly?
Jill, this is Sergeant Sacker. Listen to me. We've traced the call. It's coming from inside the house.
A twist that just so happens to be lifted directly from Black Christmas.
The caller is in the house.
The calls are coming from the house.
In fact, the plot of When a Stranger Calls is virtually identical to Black Christmas's central conflict. But let's fast forward to 1996. Now by this time, the slasher's deader than dog shit, until Wes Craven's Scream hits theaters. And like so many of the genre's villains, the slasher is suddenly resurrected from the dead. Now, Scream's chock full of two things: dressed up cliches that fanboys like to think is smart writing, and references to films like Black Christmas. Just think of Ghostface's MO. What's he do before he strikes?
You want to die, Sydney? Your mother sure didn't.
A play taken straight out of old Billy's playbook. Or look at Scream's quote-unquote revolutionary opening scene. It's just Black Christmas's phone gag recycled for another generation. And remember Billy Loomis, 50% of the killer duo in Scream? Well, he shares a first name with this fella, just like he shares the last name of Loomis with Dr. Loomis from Halloween. the same movie Black Christmas inspired. Think that's all just a coincidence? Well, I wouldn't recommend betting your life on it. Oh yeah, and by the way, remember how I said Black Christmas kicked off another subgenre, the holiday horror film? Well, here they are, each owing their entire existence to Bob Clark's seminal slasher. So I think you and I can agree on 2 points. First, Black Christmas gave birth to the slasher genre. And second, the reason for its success is the same reason for the genre's eventual failure. You see, Black Christmas may not have been the most commercially successful film, or the most critically acclaimed. In fact, the movie was panned by critics of its time. But that's because it was ahead of its time. It broke new ground. It challenged conventions. Exactly what all the films it inspired failed to do. Which is why the golden age of slashers ended just 4 years after it began, and why Black Christmas's renown has only grown over time. But what can you or I or anyone learn from all of this? Well, just the fundamental truth behind any creative endeavor. The biggest risk any artist can take is to take no risk at all. Thank you for watching, you fantastic film lovers, and make sure to subscribe to this channel, Film Theory, for more fantastic film-related content. If you'd like to watch more Frame by Frame, click the frame to the left to check out an episode on the Italian horror influences behind Crimson Peak. Or click the frame to the right to check out a Film Theory episode on Frankenstein Raising the Dead. And until next time, my name is Kyle, and this has been Frame by Frame.